Hi, my name is Chuck Clark, doing Trees of Conflict, and yesterday was the 8th day since all the stuff going on in Israel, and I opened my Bible and it fell out to Joel's chapter 2 and 3, and it was just interesting that, I didn't really just open it, it was already opened, and sometimes, I like that in the Psalms and stuff. I'll sometimes just pick one, at random, and God seems to, allows me to play this game. So this time I found my Bible open, and it was on Joel 2 and 3, and it was talking about the former and latter rain. I thought that was kind of interesting, and it said that let's see if I still got it, yeah, and it says latter rain in the first month. I was thinking, we just had Rosh Hashanah, so that's got to be, the first month, when this stuff is happening, and it was talking about the latter rain and the first and last latter rain. And it just kind of struck me, so I read on, and it talked about bringing the world down, everyone in the world basically, the nations, down to the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the Valley of Decision. And, it was so striking to, from where we are, nobody really knows where we are, but we can see things are definitely happening. We can see that things are heating up, and Israel has been uniting itself for some time now. And I saw an article about a month or so ago that they had a festival. Christians were doing some kind of a thing there, and some of the Jewish youth were protesting, And, I thought about it, and I said, you know what, it's time. They're happy with their Jewish heritage, and they want everybody else out, and I get it. I thought about it and said, truly the time is coming. Israel is doing something that, when they became a nation, they sang and danced, and they did their dances, the circular dances and whatnot, and beautiful, beautiful stuff, and they're doing it again, and they had some stuff in the political field there where they were in the streets, and, they love each other, and, this is polarizing them like nothing else. They are overcoming their difficulties and standing united. And what really got to me was, the Valley of Decision, that's for the world, to decide what they're going to do, because their time will signal the end of the age of grace, the Gentile time. Today, as I was looking through YouTube clips and stuff, there's a big ocean liner that they're letting Americans get out of Israel. Some friends of mine just got out last couple of months. They saw the handwriting on the wall, and I think we should all take note, and as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, what about Christians? It's time for them to come together, and they're basically in the same place as the Pharisees were back in Jesus' time. Their traditions and their separations, and I don't know how many Christian groups there are, but there's a bunch. Paul says it, and Peter and John and all those, they eventually came to Paul's revelation that the church age really is for the Gentiles. John talks about Revelation, that the churches in Asia, the 7 churches. So, he's on board. Peter's on board. He says, some things, Paul, hard to talk, but, you know what I mean? Because Paul is the master builder for the Gentiles. I know a lot of my texts and stuff will come out of Matthew. But really, the church age, we become like Jesus, who was a Jew. And we become Jews with the circumcision of the heart. Romans talks about that. Paul, of course, talks about that our circumcision is not in the flesh, but in the spirit. And in the spirit, we are Jews. And, it's difficult impossible for the flesh to really understand that. It's God's Spirit that allows us to understand those things. The world looks at Christianity as foolishness. Faith, they don't want faith, they want cash. And, we'll take the cash, you take the faith, we'll take the cash. And, that's really how it is. Matthew talks about that, that you have to choose mammon or God or mammon. You have to make up your choice. That's Matthew 6:24, just after the Sermon on the Mount. After the Lord's Prayer. And, we need to seek God and allow Him to work in and through us. He says the birds, they don't have barns and whatnot, and God feeds them. And the flowers are, more arrayed than Solomon. Yet, they're better than them. Yet, they're grass. They're burnt up. So, as we seek God, God will take care of us. And it's a path that we have to learn, because we're talking Sermon on the Mount there. Most people think that's just a good ideal, but really, it's a roadmap to God. It talks about the narrow gate and how to get through that. And I look at the narrow gate as Romans 2:1, wherein you accuse another, you are guilty. Over and over, Jesus says to come together, to love one another. And it's the one thing that the Christian church will not do. There's love, in there. We were all discipled. We all came that way. Somebody loved us enough to help us. But, there's easier ways. I found these Samaritans, if you will, that helped me understand spiritual. I was studied to be a missionary, and then these Samaritan types that didn't even know Jesus were helping me learn about God. I knew all about the Bible, and I knew a lot about God, but what I didn't know was about me. I could see God. I was walking with God, and all these things would happen, and then when things got really hard, somebody had to show me Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. Okay, I'm off again. But it really took time to understand principles, like one day at a time. I'm worrying about tomorrow and regretting yesterday, and the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I ain't even using that name because that'll I lose the audience. But there's spiritual principles. You're coming from a guy that was a missionary. I was church planting and helping people start churches and stuff. And next thing I'm going through a time when I had to have help. They say that my scorecards read 0, because God will do that. Until I was afflicted, I went astray. God can, except the Lord build the house, they that build it labor in vain. So I had to learn to not use my will, but God's will. Most people function on their own will, and it works for a long time until it's time, for the school of God. Hebrews 12 talks about, God disciplines every child and scourges. And then Psalm 51 says, that I might rejoice and have joy in the bones that you've broken. You have to got to be there to really be able to laugh and enjoy that one, But it's the path, and how beautiful to be able to get outside of ourselves, what is that, the guy Peck, the road less traveled? Well, it's hard to get out of yourself, Well, God can show us exactly how to get out of ourselves, and be able to laugh at ourselves. Guy told me one time, if you can't laugh at yourself, Chuck, you're going to miss a really good joke, Back then, I was kind of big and angry, so, he was, pretty daring to even say those words. But in the right time, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person or the right thing to the wrong person. I heard it when I needed to hear it, and, like the poem Footprints, it's a wonderful poem. I forget when I heard it, maybe in the 80s or someplace. And, it's all of a sudden there's only one set of footprints. God, what happened? Where did you leave me? And God says, no, it was there that I carried you, What a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it's profound in its simplicity and beauty. The Serenity Prayer, from the World War I era, I believe, and I know someone tried to take credit for it and whatnot, and, it was just kind of a movement around those times that, they understood that, it wasn't meant to be. We thought this girl was and that guy was going to be, but he died, so it wasn't meant to be, And, the long version of that prayer, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will. Powerful stuff that I might be somewhat happy in this life and supremely happy in the one to come. God's doing, when we can rest in God. That's faith. That's, we learn that rest, the rest that only God can give, the peace that only God can give, because when I'm, struggling and trying to drain the swamp, and I'm up to my, my what is that, elbows and alligators, it's kind of hard to remember that I was just coming to drain the swamp, Well, God can calm those alligators, and allow the swamp to be drained in my life, to be able to see the flesh and, powers of two, that we can come together and help one another tremendously. And, as Israel is unifying itself, it's time for the Church of God to unify itself. I believe the time is now. I mean, it may not be, but what harm would it be to walk with God? Peace, joy, love, And, I personally really think it's time, with the things going on in the world. I would not be surprised that, Revelation 6 has begun, and first horseman without the rider was, this whole, I called it, what do I call it, COVID. If it was that, because it was the crown, right? It was the corona virus, right? And the idea that there's no rider on the first horse, if you looked into Revelation 13 or 14, where it talks about the 10 nations, the 10 nation beast that raises up from the sea. Well, that's the nations that are coming, and it says they are in the power of the Antichrist, but in the power of the devil. But it's them first. Then after that, we hear the one that comes from the land. When he comes, then comes the devil. But, there's a two-part thing. And we could be doing the person. We've had a lot of peace. About 3.5 years, I think. we've had these Abraham Accords and whatnot, And, I mean, it's possible it could be after whatever goes on between Israel and Hamas. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying, we basically just went through the first month, and, we could be wanting to gather the latter rain. God pours out his spirit. We're seeing some stirrings and revivals and stuff, and people are trying. So, it could be that, these types they've been seeing it. You know, it was 2,000 years ago when they said watch. You know what I mean? So I take that as a doctrine that we should always be watching. You know, I don't know if God's going to come from here. I'm going to go to him. You know, either way, it's going to be the same, right? I'm going to stand before him. And, you know, and they did. You know, the songs of the Civil War, you know, glory, glory, hallelujah. Mine eyes have seen the coming of the Lord. So, you know, like Martin Luther said, you know, I've seen it. And he did. He did. So will we. And, you know, I believe the time is now. I really do. But, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's today, tomorrow, or next week, or whatever. So long as I'm in the right place, it doesn't matter. I can have peace. I can have joy. And I can have fellowship. And, you know, I would love to see the church. I was in revival of the 70s. I got saved in 71. What a beautiful few moments, you know. I found God, you know what I mean? I came from a bar at 13 years old in a bar. My mom's out here to hear this. But, well, she is now. But, you know what I mean? And what a wonderful thing. And, you know, being different, of a different, what kind of Indian are you? You know, being of a different color, you know, I was, you know, escorted away from all the love feasts going on, you know. And that's okay. You know, it went the way it went, and, you know, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that somebody brought God to me. And it doesn't matter, you know, I have him. So, you know, we all come the way we come. I think everyone comes a little different. We all have our testimony. We all have our story. But I believe the time now is to seek God, you know. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Eat God's word. I recommend in the morning, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I remember times I used to do all my reading at night. And I go through my day, and I, you know, try to pray and stuff. I was studying to be a missionary and whatnot. But, you know, the day comes, and I was walking with God. But I find that it's better if we, you know, eat it in the morning. And, you know, a systematic way of living helps more. Because if I'm, you know, working on a motor or something, you know, I may go days or weeks on you know, working on one certain thing, you know, a little out of balance. But if I remember every day to start my day with God, I have a much better time of being able to be successful for that day. You know, it's like my breakfast, you know, it's in there doing what it's supposed to do. So I eat some in the morning. And, you know, throughout the day, at night, you know, I do, you know, I eat a lot because it's good and I'm nourished. You know, it's, I talk with others about it. So anyway, I believe Jesus is coming, but I know for sure that it'd be a good idea to let the church be the church. And I sent a video today actually talking about speaking in church. You know, I think it'd probably be wise, you know, to have like a 3-part, you know, part music, part preaching, and part sharing one with another. Whether it's topics or, you know, pick a topic or whatever the preacher preached on that day. You know what I mean? Digest that. Talk about it. Say, okay, you went over Romans. Well, let's talk about Romans, you know, and get other people's ideas of it to enrich it. That's what AA people do. They'll take a topic, and then just by the time, you know, you might not even like the topic, but by the time they're done, man, you got a good understanding of that topic, and you'll hear it from many, many people. And, you know, how beautiful that is. You know, any topic you take with God's people, it will be enriched as we're speaking. You know, the pastor doesn't know everything. He's only one person. You know what I mean? He's only one part of the body of one person. You know, you may have the gift that's more needed, you know, in the body, or down here, or a hand, or, you know what I mean? One person cannot be the whole body, except Jesus. But I mean, in the church, it's a ridiculous thing. It's the what they call the Moses form, you know, like the law. It's supposed to be a body of all of us, you know, coming together, and we had apostles, and then teachers. You know, it's helps and all those stuff. We come together, Romans 12. And we look and we can see with, say plug in and you'll find your part in the body. Well, if one man's orchestrating it all, I've sat many, many decades where they wouldn't accept my gift because they didn't like my color. So I'm sitting there, you know what I mean? I can see I've got a gift there. They can see I got a gift there. They just don't want me to be able to use it because they don't want to hear from me, And I get it. That's just how it was, What was the movie Dirty Dancing with the rich and the poor, right? Well, nobody wanted to listen to the poor, And then we took what's her name there? Don't the girl, don't stifle her. One of the the poor guys, But it's the dividing wall has come down between the rich and the poor, male, female, Gentile, Jew, and this is a wonderful time now in the church. This is probably one of the greatest, The church has gone cold, and that's probably a good thing. I was hoping that the church would close up because they weren't doing it again. They've got schools and the church, get rid of them all and start anew, be the church. What we had, it's terrible, it's terrible for me. It was only suited for a special person, basically middle-class, white, rich, or got money, whatever, it's not for everyone. And it should be about everyone together. And let you chew on that a little bit. Because that's a lot, it's only the Spirit of God that can do it. The flesh can't do that. The flesh will fight, the flesh wants money, comfort. It's got to be spiritual. And let God show us. Then the gifts will come out. But anyway, God bless you. Like I said, I pray that the conventional church that we've been in and all those different denominations will cease. It's Jesus. It's not Paul. It's not apostles. What do you call it? A book, 1 Corinthians. Some say they're of Paul. Some say they're of Apollos. Jesus was not divided. We are. And the devil's not divided. We are. So it's time for the church to be the church, and just put all that stuff. Anybody can really see it. It's the let those that are least esteemed judge. Anybody can see it. I remember guys in my business group saying, we count the church people. They're all they cheat us. The church people cheat them, and they said they count it as their tithe. They even know the language. People are smarter than you think. Anyway, I love you, and I pray that the church would be the church and stop all this nonsense. Used to be rich, you had to be rich to go to church. They wouldn't let the poor come in. Anyway, God bless you for today, and Lord Jesus, help us through your Spirit. Lord, pray for your children, those that have your Spirit. Wake them up, Lord, to, if they need to, come out from among them and be separate if they need be, because, was it 2 Corinthians 4 says he will be a God to us. And God bless you today, and hope to talk to you soon. Bless.